Okay, I am back, and Georgia has a lot of historical markers. They have a very good program of pulling those up. In fact, there's a website, and I'll put it in the comments about the where you can locate the Georgia historical markers. I don't know, there's about 500 counties in Georgia, and all of them have several historical markers, so it's kind of fun going around seeing some of these. Well, being a long holiday weekend, I wanted something to do, but really didn't have any money to go anywhere. So I figure I'll just go to some of the ones that are close by, the up the Highway 27 corridor and the very western edge of Georgia, and see some of the historical markers. Some I'd seen and some I hadn't seen. And so I started going on the list and picking a few out, and then changing the list and changing it as I was driving up there. So I'm very particular about what I want to do and plan everything ahead on a road trip. So I spent that for a day, and then when I got to a certain point, I realized I needed to get home before dark because I don't like to drive at night. So anyway, I've mentioned it before, but the Second Creek War, the best book on the subject is the Second Creek War by John Ellisor. It's 500 pages. A few years ago, I was laid up and had a week to read this, and boy, I really enjoyed it. It's the most knowledgeable and really about the only book that's been written on the Second Creek War in Georgia in 1836, 1837. Before then, I would have to, there's a issue of the Chronicles of Oklahoma that covers it pretty well, and then some of the county histories, like the history of Stewart County, but it's good to have it in one book. So, in fact, John Ellisor, he's referenced in some of the historical markers that or interpreted panels. So let me see, try a share screen here. Okay. And I'm going to start out with the very southwest corner. If you go up 27 from Tallahassee, you go into Georgia, and the first big city you get to is Bainbridge after about 20 miles from the southern border of Georgia. And so I found these two markers. This was a new one for me. The Battle of 1702, very interesting, involving the Creek, I guess the Creek and the English, and then the Seminoles and the Spanish or whatever. Anyway, I'm not going to read through the whole markers, but you can actually look them up online and what the text is. Very interesting. So here's the one by Georgia. And then as I was getting in my car to drive away, I noticed a few yards away was the same subject, a marker from the Chattahoochee. Oh, the same marker. Unfortunately, this one, there's like a house being torn down next to it and a pile of debris. Also covers it. Now, this is the Chattahoochee corridor, Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Chattahoochee River. And something I noticed about these markers, they're black with gold lettering, and they grow lichen and fungus on them really bad. I don't know if it's the color of the paint or the type of paint. I just started noticing it on all of them. They really start to grow those lichens. In fact, I had to clean it off the Fowltown marker. On the back of this marker, it says the same thing, of course, but it's just totally covered with them. This is in the northeast corner of Bainbridge, and you really have to search these out sometimes. Okay, this is the Chason Park, north side of town in Bainbridge, along the I think it's the Flint River. And this is a 32-pound cannon, usually a cannon that sits in a fort. and turned up like this. And there's a few for monuments around there. This is for Camp Hughes. Chason Park is the site of Camp Hughes. And they have another one for Fort Scott. Here's the one for Fort Scott, 32 pounder. I think it's forged in 1819 or something. It's also on a granite pedestal. And the site of Fort Scott, part of it was obliterated when they built Lake Seminole on the reservoir, and you really can't get out there. The timber rattlers are really bad. So they moved the marker over to here, but at the site of Fort Scott, so, that's a couple rivers on the other side of the Flint River at the confluence of the Flint Chattahoochee River. And there was a series of interpretive panels at Chason Park. Really good interpretive panels on the first Seminole War, the history of Camp Hughes. And so when I went there the other day, this is what I saw. Oh my God, they're gone. What happened? They're obviously, pouring a lot of concrete in the park. And what they're doing, they create a stairway up to that pedestal and a walkway. And the county or the city's coming up with a wonderful project to turn this into a multi-use park. And they're going to interpret the Seminole and Creek War history, the Camp Hughes. They've done archaeological excavation of Camp Hughes. They might even rebuild part of it. They're going to do a creek Indian garden, I guess, growing the plants or food plants or vegetables the creeks will have an interpretive center. So that's going to be a really great thing to see. I hope it's something where they continue to keep it up looking nice and don't let it run down. Going south of Bainbridge along the Chattahoochee River, there's Camp Recovery. It's off on a side road, and this is private property behind the gates. There's like a cattle or something back there, but this is the gates. In fact, they put cannonballs on top of there, like a 6-pounder cannonball or something. And there's a historical marker for Camp Recovery. And that was the hospital from Fort Scott on the land side, not the peninsula side where the fort was, so the soldiers could recover from the dysentery or whatever. And nearby at the marina, if you go to the end of the Hutchinson Ferry Road, I believe, there's a historical marker for Fort Scott. That's about as close as you can drive where the boat landing is, and over on the other side of Lake Seminole somewhere is Fort Scott. We were there 5 years ago during the 200th anniversary. Very interesting. There's several graves of soldiers there, and you can see the depression of the graves. The burials are still there. Maybe as many as 70 or 80 of them there. It was a very unhealthy place. And further down or further up the road, about 5 or 10 miles from Fort Scott, is the historical marker. This is from the Historic Chattahoochee Commission, another one of these dark markers. And this, I cleaned it off on the 200th anniversary of the attack on Fowltown on November 21st and 23rd, 1817. Village of Fowltown was attacked by the Americans. Pretty much started the Seminole War from there. That's up another county road. They hide these pretty good, and you have to really look out for them. And that is Fowltown. Now, all those trees behind it, they're all gone now. Hurricane Michael took them out, which is something you see around here. And also, I think it's leaning a bit to the side or something, but the historical markers still there last found. And so let's go to the next county over. This is Baker County. Baker County is, where is that at? Oh, that's northeast. Okay. If you keep going on 27, you'll go to Colquitt. And from there, you can take a road to the east. The northeast goes to Newton, the county seat of Baker County. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not at Baker County. I'm at Early County. Ah, okay, Early County, north of, scratch that, you go north on 27, north of Colquitt. Then the next county after Colquitt is Early County. That was a county created from the Creek lands cessions from the Treaty of Fort Jackson. Yep, that's what it says. And kind of significant there. That's your typical, you know, kind of Greek revival or Art Nouveau type courthouse. And nearby is Kolomoki Mounds, which I suggest is worth visiting. Very interesting ceremonial complex. A large cube-shaped mound. That's the visitor center, which is actually built inside a mound. Back in the 50s, if it was done today, they wouldn't do that, but it's one of my most favorite parks. And outside of the city of Blakely, you have north and south, you have two different markers for the 3-notch trail. This is the north of Blakely, and this is south of Blakely. The 3-notch trail basically was Andrew Jackson's trail that he blazed going down to Florida from Fort Gaines down to St. Mark's. And next county is Baker County. East. Okay, now we go east to Baker County. There's an important Second Creek War battle in there. Baker County also, I think, part of the Creek land cessions, as all these counties were. Very bloody battle fought in the 1836 Creek War. Here's the historical marker, the Battle of Chickasawatchee Swamp. If you go there today, the marker is gone. We don't know if somebody stole it or hid it. Such is the peril of historical markers. Show you another one. This is the Stevens Cemetery in Calhoun County, Florida. This is what remains of it after Hurricane Michael. I went there a couple months ago. In the background, that all used to be forest. That's all gone now because of Hurricane Michael. And let's go to the next county. Fort Gaines. And Fort Gaines in Clay County, along the Chattahoochee, north of Kolomoki Mounds. Take Highway 39 to Fort Gaines. And a lot of historical markers here. I've covered it in previous videos. Here's a historical marker, I think, on the border of Georgia, Alabama, about the 1840 boundary of the creeks that was originally here. The Creek Reservation. Fort Gaines was actually the border of the state of Georgia and the Creek Reservation until the Treaty of Fort Jackson. Here's the founding of Fort Gaines, which was in 1818, named after General Edmund Pendleton Gaines, which he spent some time here. And they have another historical marker downtown, the Fort Gaines Guard, organized during the uh, Creek uh, Creek War of 1836, and they were active up through the Civil War as the militia. And there's two markers of Fort Gaines. This is at the old historic village, a house that was the toll house right next door to this, and a blockhouse, which is my virtual background for this video. And another marker for Fort Gaines on the shore of the Chattahoochee, where you have a cliffside that you can see the river dropping way down below. And in town by Hughes, looks like a pecan tree, or there's like an oak tree and pecan tree. General Edmund Pendleton Gaines said they stayed at a house there. There's a house built by John Dill, who married Elizabeth Stewart, who was captured and held for several months after the Scott, what they call the Scott Massacre. Some people call the Scott Battle, of boat of sick soldiers and clothing and supplies going to Fort Scott, ambushed by the Indians when it came next to the shore at night. And that battle or massacre, depending on your point of view, took them totally by surprise, as really in retaliation for the Americans burning Fowltown. And here's another marker, historic sites, that covers the house of John Dill, which is, I think, right behind the marker here. But I've shown that in another video. Oh, back to the down the road. There's a two-sided marker here at the Alabama-Georgia border, leaving Fort Gaines going to Alabama. Chattahoochee Theater, that's the theater of operations, telling about the Creek Perryman brothers, William and Thomas Perryman, and Okeechobee, Hitchity-speaking Creek Indian, who was ally of the United States. And we're going through these pretty fast because I have a lot of markers. Ooh, now we go north, actually east of Fort Gaines, Randolph County, named after the Randolphs from Virginia who settled here. They also settled in Tallahassee, big plantation owners. The county seat is Cuthbert, but before we go to Cuthbert, on the very east side of the county and going into Terrell County next door, on the east, there's the marker put up by the Daughters of the American Revolution for the Battle of Echowanotchaway Swamp, a very bloody battle in the 1836 Creek War. Near that stone memorial is a historical marker. It's a battle after the destruction of the town of Roanoke. And this marker on the border of Randolph and Terrell County, Battle of Echowanotchaway Creek. Oh, sorry about that. Now you have to be real careful because I was driving down the highway. It wasn't where I expected it to be, which is usually how historical markers go. In fact, it was under this big oak tree in a shadow, and I really didn't see it until as I was passing it, had to turn around about a 1/10 of a mile down the road and come back and then stop and see it. Let's go to Cuthbert, the county seat. This was like the third courthouse. It's now the Chamber of Commerce in the town. Very scenic Gothic type that from built in 1886, typical architecture in the late 1800s. I like those high chimneys. And on the side of that, there's some interpretive panels covering the Second Creek War. well worth the stop, and it's also worth seeing the 1929 fire engine that's right next to him. And one of the panels about the founding of Randolph County and the Creek land cessions, and then the Second Creek War. This the interpretive panel mentions John Elsor's book. Some very good interpretive panels. Well worth seeing. Okay, that's Randolph County. Let's go to the east, Terrell County. And at this point, I decided that I needed to get back home before dark because I can't see very good driving at night, especially on these obscure county roads in Georgia. This is sad because this marker was standing up about a year ago, and then I think last March somebody hit it, very serious car accident. Nice enough that the local people cared enough not to pitch it out in the woods, but put it right next to the monument that was next to the stone boulder done by the Daughters of the American Revolution, and both about the same subject, Old Harrodstown. There's the monuments when Andrew Jackson came down 1818 during the first Seminole War. Oh, I guess I don't have do I have a marker for that? Oh, okay. There's the historical marker on the ground. There's a Creek Chief, and he was one of the last ones who remained in the area. Very friendly to Jackson, provided supplies. Never heard about him. So, it's different. There's the Chickasawatchee that Jackson was supplied from, and after he left there, one of the local militia came and massacred several of the townspeople, even though they were flying an American flag. But I guess Old Herod didn't have that trouble with him. Now, I almost missed this one. I knew it was there, but as I drove by, this is all I saw. It's hidden by the bushes. But there's like a church and a white pump house next to it. And I recognized that and turned around. And so that's unfortunately markers are, oh. And if I had gone further north, but I really didn't have enough time because the next county has a lot of places to see. Stewart County, Lumpkin, Georgia. Westville was there. Then about 5 years ago, they moved to Columbus, about 30 minutes to the north. But Florence Marina on the Chattahoochee River, Army Corps of Engineers Park, and Historic Chattahoochee Commission has this historical marker about the town of Florence, which is no longer there. Nearby was the town of Roanoke that the creeks burned in I guess May 15th, 1836. So, but this whole area is sitting on top of a site of a creek village. In fact, I was walking around one time and saw bits of Chattahoochee brush pottery right here laying on top of the ground. South of there on Highway 39 is the marker for Fort Jones. The people that own the property put a nice fence around it. It's nice that they're keeping up with it. During one of the battles of the Creek War, the local militia got beaten pretty bad, and they run back to Fort Jones, or they ran back to Fort Jones even when they thought they saw Indians. So that was one of the fort sites in the area. North in the town of Omaha, Fort McCreary, another fort in the 1836 Creek War. This was actually reconstructed. It was a blockhouse. And I think at one point it was even under siege at one time after the Battle of Shepherd's Plantation. And the blockhouse is out in the middle of the forest. We went and saw it when we were doing the Westville reenactment about 20 years ago. And 3 of the militia soldiers are buried there and saw their tombstone. But it was sitting out there, and I guess nobody was seeing it, and it probably needs some repair. So a couple years ago, they moved it to Fort Mims. So it has, the blockhouse now has a new home that you can go see in Fort Mims. Blockhouse just changed forts there. Fort McCreary's that way. It's, that's a forest road from there, just down the road. Here's another marker near Omaha, which I didn't see, but I want to track this down next time in the area. Indian Trail. It's about the early Creek Indians that the Seminoles genesis was from. The Oconee village. I think Chief Zakofi came from here and went down to Florida, formed one of the Alachua Seminoles. I guess they came from here in Stewart County, which is pretty cool. And this is interesting. If you're leaving Lumpkin and going northeast towards was it Andersonville, the national park or national historic site where the Civil War POW camp was. We were driving down the roads and we see this out in the middle of the farm field and said, what the heck is that? And we stop that and get out. And of course, at that time, I think it was either farmed or looked a little different at the time than this photo. Looked like there's some forestry knocked down in the back, maybe from the hurricane. But that boulder is the Jackson Trail. Andrew Jackson came by here. And so they put a monument. I guess Andrew Jackson slept here. That's kind of what you find in Georgia. And one of the most interesting ones, the town of Roanoke, burned by the Creek Indians. And it says May 15th, 1836. Burned it to the ground. I think only one person was killed, a militia soldier, because the people in the town had actually fled. There was one woman who kind of hid when the Creek Indians were burning the town, that she had come back to get some more of her property or goods that were in the house. The militia got in the fight, and I think one of them got killed. Ooh, and nearby, or north of there, the Battle of Shepherd's Plantation, which is this very interesting monument, square granite block, right along the side of Highway 39. And it has a monument on front. On the site was fought the Battle of Shepherd's Plantation in 1836. This was after the burning of Roanoke, about June 9th, 1836. Yep, that's what it says. Captain Garmany from North Georgia, and in fact, some of the men killed here are buried up in Gwinnett County at the old courthouse. Up there, there's a monument up there, which I think I had on an earlier video. And the Battle of Shepherd's Plantation, which was a very significant battle. The Indians were firing and falling back, and the soldiers kept going on, getting extended, and almost got surrounded, realized that the Indians were leading them into a trap. If you know the history of War of 1812, of Dudley's defeat near Fort Meigs, is similar to that, except at one point they kind of realized that was what was going on and they had to retreat. And so that several of the men were killed, but they didn't get like totally wiped out like Dudley's command over in Ohio. But Captain Garnaby, one of the eyewitness accounts, the soldier wrote about, and it's in the Stewart County history. He had borrowed a uniform or clothing, and it was too big, and as he was running, it kept snagging. So he, going through the swamp, he, it just dropped all his clothes and was running without any clothes left. By the time he ran up on the remaining soldiers of his unit, they thought he was Indian coming out of the swamp and almost shot him there. Kind of a amusing story. And that's the historical markers in Southwest Georgia that you can do a day trip. I kind of left about 10 o'clock in the morning and short daylight hours of this time of year, so I didn't get as far as I want. But if you are in a during the summertime, commemorate the Creek War in May or June, just bring your bug spray. Then you can actually see all these markers in one day if you, but yeah, really have to be moving and driving around to see them, which I ran out of time. But I thought that might be an interesting video for y'all, and I hope you enjoyed it.